Welcome to Your Cyber Path, the podcast that helps you get your dream cybersecurity job by sharing the secrets of experienced hiring managers and top cybersecurity professionals with you. Now, on to the show.
There are scholarships out there for LGBT. There are scholarships out there for people of color. There's all sorts of things out there, but that only helps the 5 or 10 or 15 people who get it. It doesn't help everyone, and it doesn't make a huge change in the industry. I saw this myself in my time in the military as we tried to institute diversity programs over the last, 20 years that I was in, and even the 20 years before that, which was the big diversity push. If you go back to the 70s, there weren't a lot of people of color or a lot of women even in the senior ranks of the military. And so when it came time to promote, they were promoting people who looked and sounded like them. And so you saw a lot more white guys being the leaders. And it took about 40 years to make that shift. And a lot of it was there was quotas put in place. There was things to help give an advantage to more of a diversity thing to increase that. And what we saw was after that was done for about 10 or 20 years, they were able to stop those programs and diversity kept going naturally because now there were people that looked like them in these higher places of leadership. And that's one of the problems we have in our field. When I first started doing teaching in cybersecurity, I was working with an organization called Women's Cyber Jutsu, which is a nonprofit out of the Washington, D.C. area. And their whole goal was to get more women into cybersecurity. And oddly enough, they hired me to come in and teach some classes to help get women certified and get them into cybersecurity. And so I'm the only guy around the entire place when there's a bunch of women students and a bunch of other women instructors, which was kind of strange for me being the minority in the place. But the reason that I was interested in helping that is, I have women in my own family, including my daughter and things like that, right? And I want to see them have a chance to succeed as well. And one of the big problems is when we looked at it, when we started in 2014 doing that, when I worked with them, only 9% or 11% of our field was women. So it was like, basically, if you looked around the room, 9 out of 10 people were white guys and old middle-aged white guys too, to be quite honest, that looked like me and Kip, balding, white guys and stuff like that. Right. And so, that was one of the things. And now in just the last 9 years that they've been around, that number has gone from 9 to 11% to something more like 20%. So we've almost doubled the amount of women, but women are still a very large minority in our space. And so are people of color and other things like that. So anything we can do to bring that diversity really does help. And I'm a big proponent of diversity because of my time in the military and working with people of all different races, nationalities, creeds, sex, religion. And I do see that, when you come from different backgrounds and you have different life experiences, you bring different solutions to a problem. And having that diversity of thought, especially if you're working in a cyber analysis unit or you're working with an incident responder or a malware analysis or a pen tester, being able to think outside the box and having that different background really does make a big difference.
Let me tell you what the hiring manager perspective on diversity is. You've kind of talked about it, but I want to, again, put a real fine point on this. Diversity of thought in my world means higher quality problem solving ability for my team. That's the true value, right? What's the business value of diversity? I believe that is the business value of diversity. Now, other people can come along and say that there are social, community benefits for diversity. That's fine. I got nothing against any of that. But I think that, there's a real business value piece here. And I just want to make sure that you all understand, what it is, because that's the part that's really not talked about that much. But that's, I think, where most hiring managers, that's where their heads are. Now, there's another thing about diversity of thought on a team that I also have to mention, because this is something, again, I don't hear people talking about this, but this is really, really important. The reason why people who are hiring managers tend to build teams that contain people that look and think exactly the way they do is because it takes no emotional maturity to build a team like that. In other words, there'll never be any conflict. We'll never disagree with each other. It's the easiest experience in the world. It's like going to the clubhouse every day where everybody thinks the same way. We're never going to clash. There's never going to be disagreements. And we're just going to have a fun time being around each other. When you're on a highly diverse team, it's not like that. There will be clash. There is going to be conflict. We're not always going to agree. And if we don't have a sufficient amount of emotional maturity to be in a conversation like that, the team is going to fly apart and it's not going to last. So as a hiring manager, I can tell you that when I'm building diverse teams, I'm not just looking for diversity, I'm looking for emotional maturity. People who can stand to be challenged on something as important as a core value because we're trying to have high quality problem solving in action. And if you get your feelings hurt over that, well, you're not going to do well on a diverse team. So I want you to think about that before you get the opportunity to join a diverse team. Ask yourself, can I handle this? What's it going to take for me to handle this? Because if you get in there and you can't handle it, that's a mishire. You're not going to have fun. No one's going to have fun if that happens.
And I'll tell you, I'm 43 years old now. And when I first got in this industry and I started doing this 25 years ago, I was in a lot of teams where everybody looked like me, right? They were all, well, at least look like me now, middle-aged white guy,
like
right?
you.
And they all thought like me because they came from that type of middle-class upbringing. And it was about 10 years ago, I was in a course when I was working for the government, and I was going through National Defense University, and I was in a class, and we were talking about why diversity is important. And I was like, I don't agree with you guys. I think it's not important. It doesn't matter. We should just pick the best person for the job. And we were having the discussion about colleges and scholarships, and why should we have a scholarship for LGBT? Why should we have a scholarship for left-handed people? Why should we have a scholarship for people of color? Whatever it is, right? And again, being that I was brought up in a middle-class white home, to me, I felt like this is something we don't need, right? It should just be whoever's got the best score, they should get the job. And, after working with people of other backgrounds and colors and nationalities, they helped me see why it was important. Because like, yes, I understand the way you think, and you feel like by giving an advantage to a person of color, you're now disadvantaging you, the white guy. But that's not really the case, because you have now had a couple 100-year head start, right? Because of all the things that have happened throughout U.S. history. And there's lots of badness that's happened to both the indigenous people of color, Black folks, African Americans, even Hispanics and immigrants. Nowadays, we see this all the time. And so, it's a lot of people would bring up, and again, I was a standard middle-aged white guy thinking like, well, why should we give an advantage to somebody because of the color of their skin or because of their sexuality? And the reason is because we need those people to get up into the hiring manager levels so they can hire other people who look like them as well and increase this diversity. And that's what we're starting to see happen now. Over the last 10 years or so that I've really been paying attention to the industry, it is getting more and more diverse. And that is a good thing because of diversity of thought. And and just because somebody has a lower test score doesn't mean they're going to be a worse employee. It just means they may not be a good test taker because they're not used to it, right? And you think about getting into college. I know you've got kids in school that will one day be going to college. You have another child who's already gone through college. Same with me. My kids are now out of high school on their way to college, and they have to take the SAT and the ACT, right? My kids are going to do better than the average kid because I can afford to put them in SAT prep courses, for instance, right? And so they have that leg up and that advantage. And so somebody else who may be even smarter than them might score less on the exam because they haven't gotten those materials and they haven't had that chance. And so that's one of the things that, when I started getting into it, it really kind of changed my thought process. And I will tell you, my company, Dion Training, we are a very, very diverse company. The funny thing is, most of the videos you see me on screen, I am one of 3 white men in the company, and we have 25 people in the company. My leadership team, the COO, the CEO, both of them are people of color, and they both happen to be women. My whole team is,
and they're excellent,
and they're both amazing, right? And honestly, the CEO that I've replaced myself with, she is 10 times the CEO I'll ever be, right? And so I'm very glad to have her on board. And like things like that. But I look around, and like if you look at my instructor pool, even there's 5 of us as instructors. There's 2 white guys. Everybody else is people of color. Whether Black, Arab, or whatever else we have. And I think it's important because it allows our students to relate. It allows them to have better content. And honestly, as a small company, I can't compete with the big guys. If the big guys are going to overlook the diverse talent, I'll pick them up because I can afford them, right. And they're willing to take a chance with me, right? And so those are the things as a hiring manager that I look as well. Is this is a talent pool that a lot of people will overlook, and I think you find great talent there. So anyway,
So let me just say one more thing about diversity. So Cyber Risk Opportunities, we're a small company. And one of the dimensions of diversity that we've put into place is intergenerational.
Yes.
So if you look at the cross section of my company, I have a baby boomer, I have a Gen X, which is me, I have a millennial, I have Gen Z. I've got representatives from all those generations, and they all bring completely different value systems into work. I'll never forget one time when I had somebody in my Gen Z cohort talk about the importance of not working on a particular day. They didn't want to work that day. And my boomer freaked out.
What do you mean, you
And
lazy Gen Xers? Get back to work.
Yeah, it was kind of like that, and I was just sitting there listening to this clash, right? And I kind of had to play mediator a little bit. Like, look, just because it doesn't match your value system doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yep.
You got to be more tolerant than that. And it's gone back the other way too. But it's okay because sometimes the boomer says stuff that it's exactly what we needed to hear. So just wanted to say that, it's more than just, what color are you or whatever, these surface things. Sometimes it's just, hey, you come from a different time and you can share things that, people that are younger would have never experienced.
Yeah, I mean, same thing on our team. Like I said, we have about 25 people right now, and we age from 16 to 56, I think is our oldest employee right now. We have men, we have women, we have trans folks, we have LGBT folks, we have white, black, Hispanic, Asian, anything you can think of is pretty much represented in our company. It's not like I had a quota. I said, okay, now I need to hire a person of color, and now I need to hire a female, and now I have to hire a gay person.
Yeah.
It's just they naturally were the best candidates, and we chose the best candidates, and we didn't care.
And
and they're all comfortable there because we all don't care, and we're like, we just want you to work and do a great job.
You also have time zone diversity,
yes.
language diversity, culture diversity. I mean, I think you can ring every single bell.
Yeah, about half my staff is in the U.S. and half my staff is outside the U.S. We're spanned across 6 different countries right now, and we do that specifically for lots of different benefits, including the diversity of thought as well as diversity of time zone, because it allows my people who are in their daytime in the Philippines, for instance, if you send an email at 3:00 in the morning my time, I'm not answering it, but there's somebody in the Philippines who will. And when they're sleeping, my team in the US is answering those questions. And so we have the ability to follow the sun and things like that because we have a large user base and we need to be able to support them all. So all those things go into diversity, and it's things to think about. And when you're talking with a hiring manager, diversity is important. And it's not just a talking point or a bumper sticker. It is something that we really do need to get our arms around as an industry.